Welcome back. I'm Stephen, and this is episode 5 of the Ejaries.a podcast. Today we're looking at rejections. Most Ejaries registrations go through cleanly, some don't. When a registration is rejected, it's almost always for one of a small number of recurring reasons. This episode is the catalogue of those reasons, the cause of each, and the practical fix. Rejection 1. Landlord name mismatch. The most common rejection is the one we touched on in episode 3. The name on the tenancy contract as landlord doesn't match. The name on the title deed as owner. The system can't process. A registration where the person renting the property to you isn't the REGISTERE owner of the property. The mismatch is flagged and the registration stops. The cause is usually one of three. The contract was signed with a property manager, not the owner. The contract was signed with a previous owner, whose sale hasn't completed. The contract was signed with an authorized representative under a power of attorney. The fix depends on which of these is happening. If it's a property manager, the manager needs to produce a management agreement or a power of attorney from the owner. The registration then proceeds with the manager named as authorized representative and the owner named as the underlying landlord. If it's a previous owner, the new owner needs to either complete the title transfer first, in which case the new owner becomes the registered landlord, or produce the sale documentation that's pending. The registration may need to wait for the transfer. If it's a power of attorney, the OHO itself needs to be valid, registered through the proper channel, and contain wording that authorizes lease execution for the named property. We cover the wording requirements, specifically on POA for property.a. Rejection 2. Ejari's ID issues. The second most common rejection relates to the tenant's identification. The system requires a valid Ejari's ID. If the ID is expired and renewal is in progress, the registration may be paused. If the tenant has recently changed sponsors and the system shows a temporary gap, the registration may flag. The fix is to ensure the Ejari is current and the residency record is clean before initiating the registration, where renewal is in progress. The practical advice is to wait for the new card, where the system flags a recent sponsorship change. The residency record usually self-corrects within days. Reattempting the registration after a short pause is often enough. Rejection 3. Missing or expired documents. A registration where a required document is missing, or where a submitted document is itself expired, will be rejected. This shows up in several forms. The landlord's commercial license has expired. The title deed reference isn't current. The DEWA bill required by some registrations isn't recent enough. The affection plan is from a developer whose status has changed. Each of these has a specific fix, and the fix is always to update the document and resubmit. The preventive step is checking the validity dates on every document before starting the registration. The system catches missing or expired documents in seconds. The cost is the time it takes to obtain the replacement. Rejection 4. Contract terms outside parameters. Some contracts are written with terms that Ejari's system doesn't accept. This happens with unusually short tenancy periods. A 1-month or 3-month contract may not register as standard Ejaries and may need a different category. It happens with unusual payment structures that the system doesn't recognize. It happens with contract clauses that contradict Dubai's tenancy law. The fix in each case is to revise the contract to bring it within the parameters the system accepts, or to register through a different category. For example, holiday home rentals have their own systems separate from standard Ejaries. For unusual structures, a typing center is more useful than the app because the typist can identify the issue and advise on the correct category. Rejection 5. Rent calculator overshoot at renewal. We covered this in episode 4. A renewal that proposes a rent increase above the lawful cap is flagged at registration. The system doesn't quietly accept the increase. It refuses to register the renewal at the proposed rent. The fix is one of two things. Either the landlord reduces the proposed increase to within the cap, in which case the renewal proceeds, or the parties cannot agree and the matter goes to the Rental Dispute Settlement Center to resolve. For a tenant facing an unlawful increase, the rejection is your protection. The system is enforcing the rule on your behalf. Most rejections are document problems. Most document problems are visible before you start the registration. The fix is preparation, not escalation. Rejection 6. Title deed not registered. A small but recurring rejection happens with properties where the title deed itself isn't fully registered, or where the property is in a sub-registered category. This affects some off-plan properties before handover, certain free zone properties not covered by the standard DLD register, and properties undergoing strata or subdivision changes. The fix is property specific. Off-plan units before handover register through the affection plan, rather than a full title deed. Free zone properties register through the Free Zone Authority. Properties undergoing subdivision register once the subdivision is complete on the DLD. Register. For most tenants, this isn't a problem because most rented properties are fully registered, standard residential units. For tenants in newer buildings or in free zones, it's worth checking the property's registration status before signing. Rejection 7. Identity verification mismatch. A subtler rejection happens when the tenant's identity information on the contract doesn't exactly match the identity information on their Ejaries ID record. Sometimes, a contract is signed with a slightly different spelling of the tenant's name, or with an old passport reference, or with a name in the wrong order. The system compares the contract against the ID record and flags the discrepancy. The fix is to correct the contract to match the ID exactly. Names should match in spelling and order. Passport references, where used, should be current, where the contract has been signed. But it contains an error, a correction document, or a contract amendment can resolve it. Less common rejections. Handfuls of less frequent rejections come up occasionally. Tenancies with multiple tenants where one tenant isn't a UAE resident may need additional documentation. Tenancies in properties subject to ongoing litigation may be flagged pending resolution. Tenancies where the landlord is undergoing bankruptcy or insolvency proceedings may not register through the standard channel. Properties with disputed boundaries or ownership claims may flag the registration. Each of these is rare in standard residential tenancies. They show up more often in commercial contexts or with high-value properties, or where the property has a complicated ownership history. The pattern across all rejections. If you look at the list as a whole, there's a pattern. Almost every rejection is a documentation problem that was visible before the registration was attempted. The landlord name on the contract didn't match the title deed. That was checkable before signing. The Ejaries ID was expired. That was checkable before starting. The commercial license wasn't current. That was checkable before submitting. The rent increase exceeded the cap. That was calculable before proposing. The contract had unusual terms. That was reviewable before signing. The implication is that the way to avoid rejection is preparation, not problem-solving after the fact. The 30 minutes you spend checking documents before starting saves the days or weeks you'd otherwise spend resolving the rejection. What to take from this episode? The most common rejections are landlord name mismatch, Ejaries ID issues, missing or expired documents, contract terms outside parameters, and rent calculator overshoot at renewal. Each has a specific fix. Each is almost always preventable by checking the documents and the contract before starting the registration. The system is designed to flag problems early, rather than let unsound registrations into the register. Rejection is a feature, not a failure of the system. It's catching something that needs to be caught. In the next episode, we look at the relationship between Ejaries and DEWA, how the two systems connect, why the connection matters, and what to do when the connection goes wrong. Thanks for listening. The full transcript is at transcript.a. For Ejaries registration support, ejaries.a is the operational service.